right, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom, Tada Aki, and out there preaching his word in truth and sincerity. This is Brother Shamar coming back with another lesson. And in this lesson, I want to speak on this article and another one, pretty much showing you the state that things are in and what's coming down the pipeline, so to speak. But the first scripture I want to get real quick is Jeremiah 28:8. And it says, the prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. And you see all those things basically taking place, man. Wars and rumors of wars. All right, the things and tensions are just further escalating between America and these other countries, as well as the evil that's going on, the wickedness happening. All right, that's only getting worse and worse as time goes on. And then the pestilence, plagues, man. And those, the last pandemic that happened wasn't really anything, pretty much. And they're going into that in this article, pretty much saying that the next thing to come is it's going to be called the Great Pandemic, But I'm gonna read a little bit of this and then go to the other one. But this is from naturalnews.com. The heading says, former CDC head warns that gain of function research will trigger another pandemic that's much worse than, the other pandemic. I can't really say that word. The next contrived pandemic is already in the works. And Dr. Robert Redfield, who headed up the CDC, while the Trump administration was in power, is warning that it will be a lot worse than the previous pandemic. Appearing on a recent broadcast of Hill TV's Rising, Redfield painted a bleak picture of the next pandemic, which he says will arise from gain-of-function research or intentional bioterrorism, and be much more brutal to the world than the pandemic was. I do believe the next pandemic, and we're going to have another pandemic, and I think it's going to be the Great Pandemic. Redfield promised to the audience, I consider the last pandemic a minor one. The Great Pandemic's going to come, and normally it would come from spillover. So like the bird flu that learns how to transmit to humans, then go to human. But I think species barriers are very real. And then this is jumping down to the next segment. It says, later in the segment, Redfield reassured his audience that he is certain the next great pandemic is coming. That will for sure, he seemed to suggest, the second time around be a result of gain-of-function research or intentional bioterrorism. It's going to be a bird flu virus that is manipulated to be able to transmit human to human, very similar to what we saw with the pandemic, he explained. And then they got this video below that's going into it about how it's going to be the next pandemic will likely be a bioweapon comprised of SARS, HIV, and the bird flu. So if you want to, look at that, they talking about it in that video clip pretty much. And then that's pretty much it on that article. And the next one, I ain't really got to read it fully. It's just straight to the point. It's about the inflation going on, and it says American hunger soaring as food becomes too expensive for many families to afford. The Urban Institute released a disturbing study this week showing that 1 out of every 4 Americans now has to go without food, sometimes because it is just too expensive under President Joe Biden. And it's basically just going into how the figure has spiked, about 23% in just 1 year since he got into office. So imagine how things are going to get, you know, as we keep on moving further along. And this is based off of 2022. So they're not even giving you data from, this year as of yet. So the next scripture I wanted to get is 2nd Ezra 15 and 14. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands." Yeah, and that's right, man. That's what you see going on, man. The sword and their destruction draw nigh. And you see that they're planning all these things. The first pandemic didn't get the job done like they wanted to. That was just a trial run. And now they're already coming out and telling you right in your face that another one's on the way, and it's going to be called the Great Pandemic. And we already know that Esau, he pretty much, he throws the stuff out in your face before he goes out there and does it. That's that's how proud he is at this point, because people are so asleep and docile. Nobody even cares. So this information could be out there telling you what he's planning to do, and what do you see everybody else out here doing? Just continuing life as usual, worried about their 9 to 5, trying to make it in American society when things are just rapidly getting worse and worse in society, man. The economy is basically crashing, and you're seeing it. The bank out here collapsed. The Swiss bank collapsed, and then I think another one that the same thing happened. You're just going to be seeing all these different problems happen all over the world, and it's going to be a global problem as well as another global, pandemic. And what's going to happen, like the article is going into with the food shortage, or people not being able to afford food. What do you think that's going to do? Because it said now it's 1 in 4. At first it was 1 out of every 5 Americans was struggling. Now it's 1 out of every 4. And that's based off of, like I said, last year. So that's not even taking into account all the inflation and things that's here right now, man. And that things are keep on up because they keep on raising their interest rate hikes up, So things are getting worse and worse. So as prices on foods go up and people can't afford to buy no more food, here it is, you working, 40 hours. Some people, got 3 jobs and stuff. You still barely getting by. You can't even afford to buy food like that still. So what do you think is going to happen when people literally can't afford to buy food, even though they're trying to work their ass off, so-called? All right. They're going to stand up and fight one against another and swords in their hands, like the scriptures say, man. Continuing on in verse 16, it says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." And that's what you see getting ready to happen, man. Because when people are struggling out here, why you think out here in the Bay Area, the crime is at an all-time high. Dudes be over here broad daylight. They a tourist or something out here, you leave anything in your backseat in your car, they bust your window, they in and out 5 seconds or so. They got it down to a science, in broad day. And that just shows you how bad things are getting. And we not even, knee deep in it, so to speak. All right, this is just the beginning of things starting to fall apart. So imagine as things actually get worse, where how it said it's 1 in 4 that's struggling, when it's 1 out of every 2 people or 1 out of every 3 people struggling, man. When it's the vast majority of people that can't even afford to buy food. They're going to be invading one another, man. It's going to be sedition among men. All right, and they ain't going to be regarding the authority, man. They ain't going to care what the government say, because you ain't helping them eat. They over here working all these hours at their job for what? You still can't afford nothing. You can't even take care of yourself. You can't even take care of the bills. And at that point, you have literally nothing left to lose. It's like you doing all this trying to so-called live an honest life, and then you can't. You got to turn to a life of crime. So things are about to get real bad out here, man. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. And that's what's getting ready to happen, man. That great tribulation. People doing all these things because of the lack of bread, man. You barely getting by. You struggling to get by, to stay alive in the society, to maintain it, you know. Maintain the roof over your head, maintain food on the table, paying bills and all this other stuff. A lot of people ain't going to be able to afford doing it, man. And you see that the layoffs with these jobs and companies hasn't slowed down. If anything, it's more and more companies increasing the layoffs, you know. And these are all these things are going to be happening damn near back to back, you know. Because what happened, Esau ain't going to do what he did last time in the pandemic, man, where he started giving out stimulus checks. I'll say if he do, you're going to have to take that charagma. You're going to have to take that mark. And he got you at that point because he already sees all that data and stuff about it's 1 in 4 now. You know, it's really probably higher than that. People struggling to get by. He going to hit you with another pandemic. In the midst of all this stuff going on, you barely getting by. And then he going to top it all off, he going to tell you, if you do want some assistance or help from me, you got to submit. Take this mark. And it's going to be all type of chaos breaking loose at that point, man. And that's going to be the solution that he offers to the people. All right. Saying if you want to escape all this chaos, a life of crime, the sedition that's going on in America, this and that, hey, just come take this mark. We're going to take care of you. You're going to be safe, da, da, da. But you can see how he's setting the stage for something else to big to happen again. So I believe more likely that it's a high possibility that they are going to do another, pandemic or plandemic. And it's going to be right along with everything else that's happening and going wrong. The economy crashing, all right, people not being able to survive and all this other stuff. Things are getting wild out here, man. And they're going to be wild, all right? Why do you think the scriptures speak about the time of Jacob's trouble, man? Things are going to be getting crazy out here, and it's going to be all happening damn near simultaneously, man. Yeah, it's nothing for us to fear because we have the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man, keeping that hedge of protection around us. All right? Hey, so with that, I'm going to wrap up. I just wanted to speak on those 2 articles I seen while I was looking over articles this morning. And, I'm going to wrap up on that. Give our praises again to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and elders, the great millstone. And Shalom to the Akim out there preaching his word in truth and sincerity. Shalom.